best describe the movie Syndicate Smasher? Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever watched a low-budget film, and within that film there's a scene where someone is watching something on TV, like a movie on TV, so a film within the film, if you like. This movie is like that film that they're watching, some kind of low-budget movie that they've actually just shot a few scenes for so a character can watch it in this already low-budget B-movie. We are talking Syndicate Smasher. Now this one does actually have a couple of cult genre legends from yesteryear, that being Mel Novak and Lauren Landon. You've also got a couple of other, you might say, familiar faces. Joe Estevez in here, for example. And this kind of reminds me of the straight-to-video movies that you would have got in the kind of maybe the late 80s and the kind of the early 90s, but just mixed with lots and lots of kind of CGI and video effects. Now the story here focuses on a group of assassins, for lack of a better word, and they're led by Mel Novak's character as the kind of the aging leader of this gang, and there's this him and three others, this girl and the two Asian guys, and we see at the beginning of the movie they're kind of like in, I think it's going to be Serbia, and there's like this, they're taking down this kind of like this convoy of bad guys by literally standing static and shooting them with a gun with good characters that just seem to line up to get shot, etc. And in the same scene, actually, we're meant to believe that a couple of these people are snipers, and they've got these, you know, these big kind of powerful sniper rifles. And when they finish with the sniper rifles, they literally come out this bush, and they're about 5 feet away from the bad guys. This is where we're going with this movie. Anyway, they are kind of embroiled in this kind of kind of like an organised crime war. They've decided to rip off some kind of like mafia types, and it involves all of the kind of like the mafia, the Bratva, the Yakuza, all these different kind of factions of crime families that culminates in this massive shootout in this warehouse with lots of CGI, muzzle flares, explosions and bullet holes and stuff like that. So let's talk about Syndicate Smasher. Obviously a very kind of a low budget movie, and on the positive side here, it is kind of fun. I mean, there's a lot of bodies in this movie. This movie has an extremely high body count. I mean, the end fight scene alone, I mean, there must have been at least 100 people get shot and killed within that one kind of sequence alone. There's a high body count in this movie. Unfortunately, you can't tell who many of these people are, but there you go. And I have to say, there are some kind of quite neat scenes where we have simply people sitting down and talking to him, kind of like Mafia types, and I think they've been cast pretty well. They do seem to come kind of straight out of the kind of like the Goodfellas playbook of how to play a kind of you know, a Mafia crime boss, etc. But I thought the actual scenes were quite well here. I also thought Lauren Landon was actually quite good as the this detective who's kind of investigating it. And to be honest with you, she's really the only kind of like good guy, so to speak. And even she breaks some rules by kind of, you know, not following police procedure a couple of times. So she's really a side character here. Our main protagonists are these kind of 4 mercenaries. But I've got to say, these are not good people, and we're meant to kind of like get behind them as protagonists, and we see one of the characters' partner get killed in the kind of the movie, and that's meant to kind of obviously elicit sympathy. But these people have killed loads and loads of people, so I don't feel that they're particularly you know, characters you can kind of root behind. I mean, they're meant to be anti-heroes maybe, but the film simply doesn't do a good enough job of kind of building up characters here, and that's part of the problem, is that there's simply too many characters here. We have all of these kind of different crime families that kind of end up blurring into one. We've got the police, and they've got, you know, police corruption within there, and it's hard to really kind of keep track of who's who. We have all these different kind of meetings of different kind of crime bosses and police commissioners and all these sort of things, and it's hard to keep track of what's actually kind of going on. When they get to the action sequences, they're so poorly staged. I mean, Mel Novak is getting up there in years, so they've obviously kind of like, they're trying to kind of portray him as this like classically dressed kind of like badass, but he just pretty much kind of stands still, and all the other kind of like bad guys will simply line up to get shot, as I've mentioned previously. So that doesn't make for particularly thrilling action sequences, and even when we do get a bit of movement, it's more pretty much all of the characters casually walking and, you know, maybe kind of just leaning up against some cover. It's very little actually realistic kind of like, well, hardly, you know, we're talking, I'm not expecting like the Bourne movies, but there's got to be some type of kind of attempt at sort of maybe some dramatic action in regards to some of these sort of gunfights. It really is. I mean, stormtroopers would be taking the piss of this lot because the amount of, you know, shots that actually get missed in this movie. And the actual, there's maybe a bit of an over-reliance on kind of CGI enhancements for the kind of the blood, the muzzle flares, the kind of the shots and stuff like that. We do see quite a lot of hardware. There's a whole variety and different kind of like weaponry and guns and stuff like that. So if you are a gun fan, I think there's plenty of hardware on display here. But it's the action is, like I said, maybe they could have pulled back a little bit. I think this story could have been trimmed down to have maybe maybe a couple of less action sequences or shorter ones, but of a higher quality. And it needs to kind of thin out the characters because you just don't know who's who. The characterization isn't there, and there's simply too many to kind of keep track of. And the story gets a little bit sort of convoluted, and you don't really have anyone who you're kind of rooting for, so to speak. So overall, it's pure B-movie schlock. If you like pure B-movie schlocky action movies, then you may want to check it out because it does have an element of fun. I will say that, and you know, there's so much death and destruction here. You can't help but kind of like, man, you know, this is literally killed off the entire contents of a small island or something. There's a lot of kind of like action on display here, but it's such a kind of like a generically staged and kind of uninspiredly shot movie that it simply isn't very interesting as a kind of whole. It was nice to see Lauren Landon again. I remember her from her kind of fantasy movie days. But you know, it's really, I can't recommend it that well because it just isn't a particularly well made film at the end of the day. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. It does have some entertainment value, providing you know what you're getting yourself in for. So 4 out of 10 if you've seen it. Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.